The Last Word, Episode 15. The Movement, When Voices Unite. Intro. In the last episode, we explored momentum, the moment where the truth begins to spread, where other families recognize themselves in your story, and where the system starts to feel pressure. But momentum is only the beginning. When people come together, when stories align, when patterns become undeniable, something powerful happens. A movement begins. This episode is about that movement, the collective voice rising from individual pain, the shared truth that can no longer be silenced, and the growing demand for accountability. Section 1, From Isolation to Community. For years, I thought I was alone. Alone in the fight. Alone in the confusion. Alone in the fear. Alone in the injustice. But when I spoke out, when I shared my evidence, my experience, my truth, something remarkable happened. People reached out. They said, "That happened to us. We were told the same thing. We were pressured too. We thought we were the only ones." And suddenly, the isolation shattered. Because when one person speaks, it's a story. When many speak, it's a pattern. And when a pattern emerges, it becomes a movement. Section 2, The Power of Shared Experience. When people share their stories, something shifts. You begin to see the same tactics, the same misrepresentations, the same unlawful charges, the same emotional harm, the same institutional failures. Different families, different years, different circumstances, but the same pattern. And that shared experience becomes a form of evidence, not just legal evidence, but human evidence. Evidence that the system isn't failing by accident. It's failing by design. And people are no longer willing to accept it. Section 3, The Rise of Collective Courage. Courage is contagious. When one person stands up, others find the strength to stand too. Andy stood up. I stood up. Others began to stand up. And with each new voice, the movement grew stronger. Because collective courage does something institutions fear. It removes the power of silence. Silence protects wrongdoing. Silence hides patterns. Silence isolates victims. But when voices unite, silence breaks. And once broken, it cannot be restored. Section 4, The system can no longer control the narrative. Institutions rely on controlling the narrative. They rely on private correspondence, closed processes, individual complaints, isolated cases, procedural language. But a movement changes that. A movement creates public awareness, shared documentation, collective evidence, community support, scrutiny, pressure. The narrative is no longer theirs to manage. It belongs to the people affected by their actions. And that shift is profound. Because once the public sees the pattern, the system can no longer pretend it doesn't exist. Section 5, The Emergence of a Shared Purpose. A movement isn't just about shared pain. It's about shared purpose. People begin to ask, how do we stop this happening to others? What needs to change? Who needs to be held accountable? What laws are being ignored? What oversight is failing? What reforms are needed? And those questions matter. Because they turn individual stories into collective demands. Demands for transparency, accountability, lawful practice, proper investigation, protection for families, reform of broken systems. A movement gives those demands weight. Section 6, The Human Strength Behind the Movement. Behind every voice in this movement is a story. A story of love, loss, fear, resilience, injustice, determination. These aren't abstract issues. They're human experiences. Families who lost loved ones. Carers who sacrificed everything. People who trusted the system and were betrayed by it. And when those human stories come together, they form something powerful. A collective truth. A truth that institutions can no longer dismiss. A truth that oversight bodies can no longer ignore. A truth that demands change. Section 7. The movement is just beginning. This movement isn't formal. It isn't organized. It isn't funded. It's built on something far stronger. Truth. Evidence. Experience. Solidarity. Courage. And it's only just beginning. Because once people realize they're not alone, once they see the pattern, once they understand the law, once they recognize the injustice, they speak. And when enough people speak, systems change. Not because they want to, but because they have to. Closing. In the next episode, I'll take you into the heart of what comes next, the push for reform, the demand for proper investigation, and the growing pressure on institutions to confront the truth they've avoided for years. This is where the movement becomes a force. This is where accountability becomes unavoidable. And this is where the system begins to face consequences. Episode 16 is where the fight turns toward justice.